Who do you think will be the first quarterback off the board at the 2024 NFL Draft? Does Caleb Williams hold on to that spot, or does a guy like Drake Maye end up jumping him? Does the Heisman-winning dark horse candidate Jaden Daniels end up going number 1? There's still a lot of questions about the quarterback position, and with the NFL Combine this week, some of those questions may start to have answers. What's going on, Headliner Nation? Tons of news coming out of Indianapolis and the NFL Scouting Combine this week. And we do have some quarterbacks that are electing not to participate. So this is a really good time to talk about which one of these guys have the most to lose, which one of these guys have the most to gain, and whether or not their draft stock can be greatly hindered based on what they do in Indianapolis. And let's kick it off with a presumptive number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams. Now, is Caleb Williams going to go to Chicago, or do they end up trading that pick? And Caleb Williams has already announced he's not participating in any on-field activities at the Combine, which a lot of people are probably going to look at and say, oh, well, does it really matter? And I get that. And for the most part, I agree with that. Is Caleb Williams going to hurt his stock that much by not participating? Probably not. But there's a chance that it might take a couple of suitors out of the running if they're like, you know what, you can't participate, maybe we don't want to give up as much as we need to come and get you. Now, the biggest question that would be popping up this week about Caleb Williams would be about his arm strength. We know he's got good accuracy. We know he's a freak athlete. We know he's got a lot of really good developmental traits about himself at the quarterback position. But the one area that he just lacks a little bit in is that arm strength. And this would have been a good opportunity for him to show that off a little bit more to everybody at the Combine. And while he will still do that at his pro day, I also would have liked to see how he mentally dealt with the Combine and the on-field drills as well. My biggest knock on Caleb Williams isn't about his physical traits, it's about his mental traits, because this past year at USC, it just felt like the guy didn't handle adversity well. And I would have loved to see him at the Combine on the field working through that. And if he made a bad throw, how did he bounce back from that? If he didn't have a great drill, how did he bounce back from that? How would he handle kind of the pressure of being out there and needing to say, hey, I am absolutely the number 1 overall pick. I deserve to be taken first. So my final verdict for Caleb Williams is yes, I do believe not participating in the Combine could affect his stock a little bit. And by that, I mean it just affects the amount of teams that might be willing to trade up for him instead of saying, you know what? Yeah, we would like Caleb Williams, but we would be fine with Drake Maye or Jaden Daniels or JJ McCarthy or one of the other 2 guys as well. But what about Jaden Daniels? Jaden Daniels also is not participating in any on-field activities. Now, both of these guys aren't doing anything on the field on Saturday. And we are seeing a trend, especially for the quarterbacks, to skip that part of the drills because they feel more comfortable throwing at their pro days when they're throwing to their own wide receivers that they know well. And for me, the questions about Jaden Daniels really cannot be answered at the Combine. Honestly, I think he's interviewing well. Anybody that talks to the kid is probably coming away feeling really good about him potentially being their starting quarterback. And he's got a lot of tape from this past season that absolutely jumps off the screen to you. Again, one of the biggest knocks for him is going to be the same as Caleb Williams. They just lack some of that NFL upside velocity that you need to throw into some of those tighter windows. But it's also the fact that he lacks some traditional NFL size. Jaden Daniels is coming off a Heisman winning season. And this past year, there wasn't really anything about him that caused major concerns, kind of the way that we saw with Caleb Williams and his issues dealing with kind of that mental struggle of just dealing with adversity and fighting through it. So for me, when it comes to Jaden Daniels, I'm okay with him missing the Combine, actually. There's not really anything that he could do here that's going to answer questions from GMs and head coaches on whether or not he can be the guy to lead their team. On to Drake Maye from North Carolina. Now with Drake Maye, he's going to participate in on-field activities, but he's not gonna throw. Now, Drake Maye has a lot of athletic gifts, just like Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams does. He's able to move his feet, control the pocket, get out of the pocket, throw on the run. He's able to still do some of those things, even if not as well as those other two guys do. But I wanted to see how his throwing motion looked, because a lot of my issues with Drake Maye come from a mechanical standpoint, and I would have loved to see this week whether or not some of those mechanics were looking a lot better. And that's probably why he's not throwing. More than likely, he is working with a throwing coach and he is going through a mechanical change right now and probably just isn't feeling ready for it and is going to wait until his pro day instead. And with Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels saying I'm not going to participate at all, I actually think this is a really smart move from Drake Maye to still do the physicals while he's there, so he's still performing, but not to throw. Because really, those are the two guys that are battling him for the potential #1 quarterback taken. And if neither of those guys are throwing, then there's not going to be a huge separation between the three. Now, if Williams was throwing, I would say Drake Maye needs to throw as well. If Jaden Daniels was throwing, I would say, hey, if you're going to participate in on-field activities, you might as well throw as well, Maye. But because those two guys aren't going to throw, there's no reason for Maye to throw as well. So actually, this is a really good choice by him to say, you know what, I will participate in some things, but I'm going to go ahead and wait on the throwing. All right, so those three guys are kind of the big name #1 potential quarterbacks taken. Now there's one guy that's kind of sandwiched in between that and the back end quarterbacks that likely will end up going after him. And that's my boy from U of M, JJ McCarthy. Now, in my opinion, JJ McCarthy had the most to gain and the most to lose at the combine this year of all the quarterbacks, because he's coming with the least amount of film to evaluate from college over the last couple of years. Because if you've paid attention to the U of M football team, they like to run the football. And really, JJ McCarthy was in a system that is a pro-style system, but was based around the run and then using the pass after that to take advantage of open spots in the field. Every other quarterback that we have in the draft this year has tons of throwing numbers to back up tape. JJ McCarthy does not have that, and there is a lot of questions about whether or not he can handle that type of offense at the NFL level. Whether or not he's going to be a guy that says, yeah, you can only really throw it 20 times a game from him, or he's a guy that could go out there and sling it 40 times a game. And it's going to be really good for him to show everybody around the league, and even on TV, the fact that he has a cannon for an arm and his accuracy is definitely on point with the rest of the quarterbacks in this draft. And JJ McCarthy could have taken the easy way out and said, you know what, I'm going to wait till my pro day as well. But he said, no, I'm going to take this head on. Everyone wants to know what kind of an arm I have because they don't feel like they saw enough of it, so he's going to show them all on Saturday. Good for JJ McCarthy. This is an absolute win for him, and if things go well on the field, his name is going to continue to rise up draft boards. But if things go poorly on the field for him, all the talking heads are going to get talking once again, and he could end up plummeting to more of like a late first-round pick. So once again, JJ McCarthy has the most to gain out of this weekend, but he also has the most to lose. Michael Penix was the runner-up in the Heisman race this past season, and he had plenty of numbers in a high-powered Washington offense that he helped lead to a national championship game against McCarthy's Wolverines. Now this is a big win for Michael Penix Jr. Participating in this combine was an absolute must for him. And the biggest reason why is because the last time we saw Michael Penix on the field, he was getting absolutely bombarded by the Michigan defense. His performance, and really Washington performance as a whole in that national championship game, was not good. And that's the last film that we have from him. So the last time we saw Michael Penix playing, he was not putting up good numbers. He looked overwhelmed with that defense, and that's not what you want if you want to be taken in the first round. So Michael Penix getting out there on Saturday is an absolute must. So he can go out there and show everybody, I've still got it. I've got the arm, I've got the talent. Everything that you saw on tape up until that game is all there. And for Penix, that's going to give a fresh picture and a fresh thought of mind to a lot of the scouts and the evaluators there that didn't love what they saw in the national championship game. For Bo Nix, him participating in everything really is honestly just a mental win, because he wouldn't need to, because a lot of the questions that we have about Bo Nix are not going to be answered on the football field on Saturday. They're going to take place in actual NFL games. Because if you watch Bo Nix's tape from when he was at Auburn, he doesn't even look like a quarterback that would have been drafted at all. But then when you take a look at the film from Oregon, Bo Nix is a guy that's getting talk about being a first-round quarterback. So what Bo Nix are we getting? The Combine isn't going to tell us. Being drafted and playing against NFL defenses is what's going to tell us. So for Bo Nix, I think it's great that he's participating, because once again, with the top guys out, it's going to give fresh eyes on him and the other two quarterbacks that we just talked about. And that's only going to help increase his chances. Now, if he were to go out there and really struggle on Saturday, that could end up making a bit tougher of a decision for those teams that thought maybe he would go at the end of the first, and whether or not they would trade back into the first to take him, or maybe wait until day 2. But I also don't believe that Bo Nix is going to have a bad combine, because throwing the football, moving with his feet, throwing on the run, he's a flashy guy. He does a lot of really cool things at the quarterback position, except potentially being an NFL caliber quarterback that reads defenses, that goes through his reads well, that progresses through his wide receivers. Those are the biggest questions that we'll have come 2024. But let me know down in the comments section below, who do you think has the most to lose, and who do you think has the most to gain from the Combine this Saturday? And do you think Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams are hurting their draft stock at all by sitting out? Let me know down below. But also make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notification, so anytime we drop content throughout the year, you'll be notified about it right away. Have a good one, Headliner Nation. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.